into the post-game show. CT, my brother EJ, Knicks Nation. Salute to everyone out here. Salute to the diehards. Tonight was a good night as the Knicks destroyed the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road, 130 to 116, with a Jalen Brunson career-high 48 points in a playoff preview that was insane from the beginning. EJ, how we doing, brother?
Listen, CT, my brother, it's always good to see you. It's always good to be back on Knicks Buzz. A couple of weeks not here. A lot has changed, but it's always good to not only be back on Knicks Buzz, but it's also good to be buzzing when the Knicks win. Such a dramatic game. I mean, this game was action-packed. This was like a throwback to the 1980s heavyweight fights, you know, like those 12-round, 15-round, who's going to be knocked down first. And like, you know, by that 12th round, our Knickerbockers really came through. And, you know, if you've been a Knicks fan for a while, you've gotten used to the idea of them not necessarily being able to deliver the gut punch, that final blow. But tonight, Jalen Brunson came and he had a point to prove. About 48 of them.
You said it. You texted me sort of like halfway through the game, and that was a great point. Point to prove. These Knicks had a point to prove.
You caught that, right?
Yeah. Oh, salute to the chat. Mr. Vince, Prometheus, Admiral, Big Task, Geraldine, Bonson. Much respect, much love. And I'm glad to be chopping this thing up after a big win Friday night. Hope everyone's week's been great. But it's just been an awesome display of New York Knicks basketball tonight on the road. We'll talk about that and more. Julius Randle's injury. But tonight, Jalen Brunson made that another statement. I mean, I don't know how many statements he's made this season. I feel like I'm the number one advocate that he's the most improved player. I know there's many good arguments. There's whatever he's doing over in Utah, Lowry, Markkanen, but he's third in the odds in the voting, in the odds betting down here in Australia. But tonight, 48 points, career high. He went at Spider Mitchell and kept us in the game early. What was the most impressive thing, EJ?
You know, that's a really good question. Like you spoke on a number of different things that I thought that at some point tonight, we were going to address. Like the question that I think at some point we're probably going to have to hit on is what award best exemplifies or what award best speaks to the kind of performance that Jalen Brunson not only had tonight, but throughout the course of this entire season. Like there has to be some sort of award to acknowledge the kind of season that Jalen Brunson has had. And I think that's going to really be like one of the fundamental questions we're going to have when we do a wrap up over the season. But with regards to tonight, what was most impressive was just there was very little in the way of highs and lows of Jalen Brunson's game tonight. It was, for the most part, almost a masterpiece. Short of not hitting an even number like a 50 or short of like those two free throws with about 3 or 4 minutes left in the game, this game that he played tonight was pretty much a masterpiece. Considering like how many different parallel storylines there were. The Knicks coming into the game without Julius Randle for the first time this season, and that being a legitimate cause for concern for Knicks fans. Jalen Brunson delivered. The fact that this was a game against Cleveland, a playoff preview, but Jalen Brunson delivered. The fact that Spider Mitchell was involved in this game, and you know, many Knicks fans will lament the inability for us to get Spider Mitchell, but tonight, Jalen Brunson delivered. And last but not least, when it comes to creating some separation and getting closer, inching closer to that fifth spot and solidifying that fifth spot, Jalen Brunson delivered. So this was the kind of game where this is not going to be a night where we're going to critique Jalen Brunson. There might be small things we pick up on, but like tonight is really a celebration of how amazing of a player Jalen Brunson is. CT, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. Great points. Also, I will say, we haven't. Let's not forget, EJ. We haven't seen much of Brunson recently, so I was like, part of me was still. I wasn't showing it, but I was a little worried about,
Hmm.
the hand, the foot. That's been taking all the storylines recently. Obviously, he didn't have a very good game last game, even though we were able to um, win the last game against the Heat. He only played 30 minutes and didn't even close the game out.
Yeah,
Um, so there was a few question marks for me, but he answered every single question tonight.
absolutely,
Um, he's
absolutely.
been torching Spider since the playoffs last season with Dallas,
Hmm. Mm, that's a
and
good point.
much respect to Spider. I'm not going to say a bad thing about Spider tonight. He's that star for them. Yeah,
Hmm.
we know what could have been, but I'm just happy for what we have. Let's just I'm going to celebrate what we have, and we know Spider's not a great defensive player, and that just plays into the hands of Jalen Brunson. He was aggressive
Hmm.
from the beginning, EJ, and without Randle, he knew. I think the broadcast made the point that Mike Breen said that Brunson knew he had to be aggressive from the beginning.
That's what's really impressive about tonight's game is that you knew. I mean, Emmanuel quickly didn't start tonight's game, and in as much as Quentin
Mm,
Grimes, Q Grimes, Q Dot, has been using a little bit more of a maturation to his game, it was quite evident that tonight Jalen Brunson was going to have to be the offensive heavy on that roster tonight. And the fact that it was everyone knew that Jalen Brunson was going to have to carry the lion's share of the offensive load tonight. And despite the fact that everyone knew that, despite the fact that I'm assuming that Cleveland drew game plans, defensive schemes to address the fact that Jalen Brunson would be the number one, the number two, and maybe the number three offensive focus, he still delivered. And the fact that he was able to deliver, to continually deliver, consistently deliver, even when it looked like, Spider Mitchell was going
oh,
to have a record-setting night. Like the way he started the first half,
oof.
it was scary. I mean, one of the reasons why, like, I only texted a few times today during the game was because I was legitimately concerned. I was legitimately concerned. Like the way Spider Mitchell started the game, it looked like he was aiming for 72, 73. Like that start was just, and to have that kind of start, for there to be, I mean, that kind of shooting. The other concern that you have if you're a Knicks fan is would the Knicks have the offensive firepower to overcome the offense that the Cavs had displayed in the first half? Obviously, like some of those shots, you just think the probability is that they won't be as hot as they were in the first half, but it's still a Herculean effort for Jalen Brunson
Mm.
to overcome all of that scoring that took place in the first half against Cleveland. So my hat, tip of the hat to Jalen Brunson.
Shout out, career
Yeah,
high. He's just going to another level.
absolutely.
He's got he's got more gears he can go to, but he's had a few career highs as the season's gone along. But yeah, tonight was a big stage. Playoff preview.
Hmm.
EJ, it's looking more likely the New York Knicks now are going to get that fifth spot with just 4 games remaining. And we'll look at the numbers later in the show. But for that situation, we know it's probably going to be a Knicks Cleveland matchup now. But I'm kind of feeling good that tonight we didn't get to see the full matchup. But
Hmm.
Jarrett Allen out, Julius Randle out. So tonight was that game where it's just that regular season pickup. Bucket after bucket, crazy first quarter, like Admiral says. And I think it was the Cleveland Cavaliers franchise first quarter,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. I'm pretty. I remember reading one tweet where one record was broken in terms of that. So finally, someone played defense. Josh Hart. I think credit to him for slowing down Spider.
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes was struggling a bit in the first half against Spider, but where did you see the Knicks end up eventually taking this game over and taking the dub?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think one of the key moments is when you look at Isaiah Hartenstein's performance and his
Oh,
ability to just create defensive stops. Once there was this ability to create defensive stops, Josh Hart, I would say like the two turning points, and these are obviously not turning points, but the two
mm,
individuals who were key to really creating a little bit of separation. Because I mean, through the second quarter into the third quarter, there really wasn't much separation. It wasn't until we got into, the 7, 6 minute mark into the fourth quarter that you started to see the game begin to separate. Like it was really anyone's game through the first quarter, second quarter, and the third quarter. But once we get to that fourth quarter with Josh Hart, the defensive energy just turning up, with Isaiah Hartenstein, just I mean, defensive presence in a way that often we ascribe to Mitchell Robinson. Hartenstein was that guy tonight, and the fact that he
Mm.
actually ends the game with, I think, with one foul, that was impressive. So in as much as like we're lauding and complimenting Jalen Brunson's offensive output today, Hartenstein and Hart really might be your second star, your third star if you're familiar with hockey, guys. Um, just stand up on incredible performances tonight.
Yeah, you said it. Defensively, I mean, we put up 130, but we played defense. That's really what got us the lead and the win. Um, there were some follies, there were some turnovers. As I'll pull up the stats and the box score on screen, turnovers. Yeah, the Knicks actually only had 7 turnovers, so that was excellent.
Mm,
Taking care of the ball. 1 points in the paint, 54-46. Um, Also, with the building the lead, the 15-point lead compared to the 8-point lead. Um, but yeah, the fast break points, the Knicks actually won as well. So I wanted to
mm.
ask you this, EJ, with Julius Randle out, were you more, did this make this win even more impressive to you? Or do you feel like we were capable of playing this way without Julius Randle?
I think this is an impressive win for so many different reasons. The fact that Julius Randle was out makes this an impressive win because part of it too is that Julius Randle has been the consistent factor this entire season. Jalen Brunson has spent significant time out of the lineup. RJ, there were a couple of games where he was unavailable. Um, you know, uh, there are other. Mitchell Robinson has had several injury stints. So, for early in the season, Quentin Grimes wasn't. He wasn't starting, if I remember certainly correctly. So Julius Randle has for I mean, there's no equivocation about this. He's been the most consistent aspect of this particular roster. And so entering into this game, first time, game 78, you don't have Julius Randle available. What that might do to the psyche of a team, it's hard. It's hard to understand what this means. Doing this on the road, like having to win this kind of game on the road, that added to the pressure of this game. That added to the magnitude of this game. And again, there are certain players like in every generation that when the Knicks play them, you know that there's a little bit something extra in terms of the drama, in terms of the focus that we as fans have. So when I was growing up, it was playing against Jordan, or it would have been those games, very early on when I was a kid, Knicks versus Larry Bird and the Celtics. By
Mm.
the time we got to the mellow version of the Knicks, it was playing the Heatles. It was playing Indiana with Paul George and Roy Hibbert. Those games where these are teams who are really becoming your rivals for that generation. So in many ways, playing against Spider like that is gonna be like that game that anytime the Knicks play them, so long as Spider Mitchell is a Cleveland Cavalier, there's a little bit of extra oomph to it. And so this had all the makings of being a very dramatic game, and to win, especially to pull away in the fourth quarter, that was a massive, massive
Yeah.
statement.
I love that point. What about the psychological kind of blow? Because at home,
Hmm.
heading into a playoff series, Cleveland's going to have that home court advantage. And we just made that statement. Without Julius Randle, we're
Yeah,
capable.
yeah,
Knicks fam, Knicks nation. We can go into your building. We can snatch your heart out, play tough defense. We could take your best blow, like
yeah,
Donovan Mitchell gave us his best blow, and it wasn't enough because of heart to heart, like you said, the whole next man up, like cross signal says salute. and the chat on fire. Super chat from Parish Duggar says Heart to Heart was special, and
Yeah,
him, Brunson, and everyone. Salute, salute, salute.
absolutely. Thank you so much, Paris, for the super chat. Yeah, this was a big game. I mean, like, I actually stood up for the entire fourth quarter because it was that intense to me. It was that intense for me, rather,
It was
and
fun.
it really was a fun game. And let's not, we are a Knicks focused podcast. Let's not get it twisted, guys. Let's be totally critical here. If the Knicks were up for this game, the Cavs were up for this game as well. You know that this is equally as much of a statement game for them as it was for us. So there's a reason why Spider wanted to put on a show. There's a reason why, Darius Garland, there seemed to be a little bit of extra bounce in everyone's step, because these two teams know that they're fated to play each other for the upcoming playoffs. So the fact that the Knicks were able, as the likely five seed, to come in, despite the fact that Cleveland was down Jared Allen, and win this game, and to do so with the kind of fourth quarter that they have, this is the kind of win that makes you feel good, not just tonight, but this changes your perception of this team.
100%. Facts, you said it.
Yeah.
There's a shot chart on screen now with Jalen Brunson's 48 big ones, and it's all over the place. I mean, look at those deep three balls, living in the
Yeah,
paint. That shows you a dangerous player, a death by a thousand
yeah,
cuts,
yeah,
because
yeah.
he could, EJ, what stands out?
The thing about Jalen Brunson is he's one of those players I think a lot of people underrated. Didn't see what he could be, the totality of what he could be. They could underestimated what his ceiling could be. And that's why I texted you and I said, like, he had a point to prove. This guy was gonna say, like, listen, I am showing you the fullness of what I can be as a player. I can help Julius grow in terms of his game, and provide Julius with a level of consistency. I can be, a compliment to Julius. But at the same time, he's also saying to you guys, he's also saying to us, hey, if need be, I can be the lead dog on this team as well too. And so this was a there were multiple statements made tonight. Multiple statements made tonight. Um, this was really an impressive statement from Jalen Brunson. And one more thing, quickly,
Mm.
what was amazing about Jalen Brunson's performances recently? You're starting to see the national media, and I've made this point several times throughout the course of the season. The national media start to reframe how they discuss the New York Knicks, and it's not that I care about what people who only watch, like, 2 or 3 games a season for the Knicks, but the Jalen Brunson conversation. You're starting to see pundits begin to apologize and saying that they didn't even see it as well too. Like, they did not see Jalen
Yeah,
Brunson as the kind of player he is, and trust and
facts.
believe that's going to happen more and more.
Yep. Yeah, if you didn't know, now you know. But
Absolutely,
another gear to the playoffs, like Johnny says, Jalen playoff Brunson getting
absolutely.
ready to cause havoc. But another super chat from Cross Signal in the house. Salute.
Shout
Got
out.
the streets, shout out, got the streets buzzing. Cross Signal says fifth seed for sure, fourth in sight. Go Knicks.
Absolutely,
100%. Don't
absolutely,
don't matter to
absolutely.
me actually. Fourth, fifth, because you only need to steal one game on the road in the first two, and then home court goes back to you. And if anything, EJ, this team's road warriors, where we are
Yeah,
23-16 on the road now officially, I believe, and that just shows to the character, the heart, and I think the depth. I kept saying against Cleveland matchup, the point of difference for the Knicks could have been the bench, because
absolutely.
we saw tonight, Ricky Rubio, no disrespect, Raul Neto, no disrespect,
Yeah,
um, Dean Wade, no disrespect, Jetty Osman, Nick Killer,
yeah,
no disrespect, but that's not the same of the level that Quickley, Hart, Hartenstein, Obi, Deuce are playing with right now. What do you think?
And let's not forget RJ. I mean,
Yeah.
because the way that pardon me, the way that Thibs has created his rotations. RJ is primarily playing his minutes, the bulk of his minutes against the second units of the opposing squad. So when you consider that you have a roster of Quick, RJ, Hart, Hartenstein, Obi, that's a lot of talent for a second unit. And it's a second unit that is growing in leaps and bounds in terms of confidence. It's a group that's not only growing in leaps and bounds in terms of their talents, they're also growing in terms of their synergy and their ability to work together, their team chemistry. You can see
Mm.
how quickly Josh Hart plugged in as a key spark for the Knicks, but you're also seeing him develop a camaraderie with an Hartenstein, being able to know when to pass it out or to have those outlet passes. You're seeing IQ grow in confidence. The IQ at the beginning of the season, the IQ in the preseason, where I was literally concerned as to whether or not he had the patience and the wisdom to be a player who plays significant minutes. That is not the same player who we have right now. This is an entirely different ball player. Um, so because of that, you know, the Cleveland series is going to be incredibly fascinating. And I think that it's going to be a statement, or it could be a revelation into what are the appropriate moves a team should make when they're building and developing. Because the Donovan Mitchell move really did cost Cleveland a lot. And
Mm.
a lot of it was based upon its bench depth. And so that's always a question. Like, I think that if you're an NBA fan, you have to consider, will we win this season or will we win this series against the Spider Mitchell, despite the fact that Spider Mitchell is an all world talent, because the Knicks might be a deeper team? That's a fascinating question.
Yeah, and that's another element to the conversation about going all in for the superstar, and the
Hmm.
Knicks' depth being a key strength that we currently have. And shouldn't we break that up? Should we tread lightly? Um, but let's give some shout out to Obi, who got the start tonight. His shot charts on screen, and his stat line was 19 minutes.
Yeah.
Bonson adds also would love to have seen Obi play a bit more. He was getting into a groove, and but that
Hmm.
is usually Tibbs' cue to pull him. He was 2 of 2 from three,
Yeah.
getting that three ball going. Five
Yeah.
of seven. He was 1 rebound, 1 assist, -4, 12 points. But the shot chart, it's the three ball and it's at the cup. I kind of like that. What do you think?
I like it too. I think Tibbs was probably considering leaving him out there longer. I think the reason why Tibbs probably pulled him is because of the defensive concerns,
Mm,
um, because of how well Cleveland was shooting. And although I don't remember there being any significant um, OB defensive gaffes, it seemed as if like the roster, the initial rotations, the initial set didn't seem to have it clicking together on the defensive end. They were shooting the ball lights out, and Obi was a significant contributor to that. However, I do think the concern was on the defensive end. And let's keep it 100, guys. Um, Tibbs have shown recently a willingness to sit people like who you're like, wait, Jalen's not going to play the fourth quarter tonight. Mitch is not going to play the fourth quarter. So like that's to me, we can't have it both ways. We can't have it both ways. We can't have the argument where Tibbs is stuck in his ways, but then at the same time he'll like put a lineup on the floor. He'll close out a game with people we would have never expected to close out the game.
mm,
So and I love Obi. Like I'm not gonna lie. Like I love Obi. I think there's something there. I don't know what it is, but there is something that he can contribute to this roster. It just always seems
yeah.
as if something gets in the way for him to have a sustained run. Um, so But again, I think Obi had the potential of having a really great game tonight. And I'm always inspired when I see that he contributes to the team positively.
Yeah, and we know his strengths. Getting a point of difference that can get these Knicks easy buckets, leak outs, pop the three ball. I mean, 2 of 2 is exactly what you need.
Yeah.
Don't really need to shoot too much more. Um, he has improved defensively. I'm going to say it.
Hmm.
It may not be a whole heap, but he's improved.
Yeah.
Um, he's an elite backup, really. I think he's a luxury, If he was
No.
on another team, he would definitely be getting 25, 28 minutes. I think, especially the way he's shooting. The rebounding, he's got to improve. 1 rebound
Hmm.
tonight. Um, but it just so happened to be an offensive rebound, not
Yeah.
not even a defensive rebound. Um, 1 assist. Yeah, he could be that X factor in a playoff series. And with that said, do you think that Julius Randle, going to be reevaluated in 2 weeks? Do you think? I mean, we're just speculating right now, but could
Hmm.
could there be a chance where he's not ready for game one because there's only a 2 day between when he's to be reevaluated and game one?
One of the things that I saw online that was really fascinating was if MSG tells you 2 weeks, think 3 weeks, 4 weeks,
Oh
because they're not a really transparent
man,
organization, and so
yeah,
um, and they have the right to not be transparent. But when you get into these kind of situations where we're entering into the playoffs, this isn't October, this isn't February, where we have time. Um, the emotional investment of fans includes them wanting to know, is it really 2 weeks when it comes to reevaluating Julius? And let's also be really critical here. When it comes to some of these injuries that NBA ball players get, those timetables are they're not gospel. They're not
yep,
commandments. They're not written in stone. So a reevaluation might mean that they reevaluate him and they determine he might actually need more time. Um, and and so like I don't know what that means in terms of the playoffs, but again, I'm fascinated to see how um, how this plays into the playoff matchup. Because
yep,
you've talked about this for a while, and then I'll jump back to you for a second. You've talked this for a while that the Knicks have the ability to be a very strong defensive team, but with a small ball lineup, they also have the ability to create offensive matchup nightmares for the opposing squad. And that's what tonight kind of demonstrated.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, getting we're starting to win a lot more fast break points
Hmm.
in a lot of matchups because of guys like Hart, Obi, Barrett quickly pushing the pace.
Yeah.
Hartenstein's certainly been running the floor, and his passing game was just adds another dimension. Um, Shout out Munch, 2379. Yeah, we could use Obi, when there's a faster flow to the game, when there are matchups that suit him well. He's difficult to use perhaps in the slow court grind
Yeah.
in a
Yeah.
in a in a, pl- yeah, in a tough playoff game. 100%, I agree. It could be matchup dependent, EJ,
Absolutely.
and just
Absolutely.
picking the moments of the game. But Obi in the right doses is excellent. When you overplay him, you sometimes start to see where teams can take advantage. But 25 minutes with Randall out because, like you said, Josh Hart and RJ Barrett can play the four. So
Yeah.
that's a faster look with a small ball lineup, um, like you
Yeah.
said. So yeah, stay tuned with that. And speaking of Hart, is there anything else you wanted to add on
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Actually, yeah. Just really quickly on Obi. The other thing I want to just compliment Obi on, and it's
Mm.
not going to jump out, but if you're watching the game carefully, and the last few games, he's made more of an effort to be a passer. There were games earlier in the season where, because Obi seems to be the kind of player where he's cognizant of, I'm only going to get 15 minutes.
Mm.
I need to make the most out of these 15 minutes. And there seems to be sometimes this jittery nature to the way
Yep.
he plays, to the way he approaches the game, because he knows I'm only going to get 5 minutes here before coach calls down to Julius to get back into the game. And so as a result, sometimes you can see like his processing, okay, what can I do to improve my standing in the coach's mind? In the last couple of games, you see OB willing to make an extra pass or he's looking for a cutter. So even though he only ended up tonight with an assist, there were a couple of plays where you saw him actually like initiate an additional pass that led to a better offensive possession. And that to me is a win. Like when you start to see that kind of maturation. And here's the other thing too, and I know we're probably going to get to this. I actually like the fact that he stepped to RJ Barrett and said like, "Hey, bro, what are you doing? Like,
Mm.
you're missing open individuals." I love that because again, that's something that like if we're conscientious, and I know like when we get to the RJ debate, people are going to be divided, but like that keeping people up to a standard is critically important, especially on a roster like this, without one of your
Yep.
top guns in Julius Randle.
Yeah, 100% agree with you. I love it. We're building championship habits
Hmm.
because for whatever follies, he might have, Tom Thibodeau isn't always going to be the guy to get on a player. So if the players can hold the players accountable, that's great. This is
Yeah,
a, meritocracy,
yeah,
uh, so to speak. And it's a situation where, yeah, even a guy like end of the bench guy like Obi feels comfortable. He's been part of this thing for 3 years now. He's part of
hmm,
our culture. He's part of something we're trying to build, and he feels, confident to call out Barrett because he's missed him on several occasions. And I'm sure a part of him was like, I'm starting now, so
yeah,
hey, don't forget about me. I'm the
yeah,
starting four, so I'm going to step in. And I want to mention we got Josh Hart's shot chart on screen right
hmm,
now, and Josh Hart went 4 of 4, did not miss, 1 of 1 from three, and I thought he hit a really critical three, which was a great feed from Quickley. Um, plus 18, 11 points.
yeah,
Josh
yeah.
Hart just so invaluable. He's another guy that's built for the playoffs.
Yeah, he's one of the reasons why, like when you think about why Obi didn't get as many minutes as we perhaps thought he was going to get,
Mm,
it has a lot to do with Josh Hart.
yeah,
Josh Hart was the right player to put in at the right time. Between his
facts.
the thoughtfulness of his shot selection as well as his effort on defense. I mean, there's clearly the play where he's deflected the pass, broke it up, didn't allow Donovan Mitchell to get control of the ball. Those kinds of plays, the outlet pass to Hartenstein, those are
Mm,
the kind of plays where you win with intelligence, and Josh Hart has the ability to make intelligent basketball decisions that are winning plays, and the kind of plays that when you feel like the tide is turning, um,
mm,
he'll make the right kind of play that'll push the current, that'll push the tenor of the game towards your favor. So,
yeah,
there was a moment with about
facts.
3 minutes left where it felt like, oh man, are the Cavs about to make a run? And who's in the middle of making sure that doesn't happen? It's Jalen Brunson,
Yep,
but it's also Josh Hart,
Josh
and
Hart.
that's why Jalen Brunson, he was so excited about getting Josh Hart on this squad, and we've all seen the
Yep.
video clip of it. And every time I see Josh Hart make a play, there's a little EJ that's celebrating just like Jalen Brunson the night that Josh Hart was traded to the Knicks.
Yeah, exactly right. Tom Thibodeau might have been the most excited with this thing. Playing him 30 minutes, 29
Yeah.
minutes tonight, 4 of 4 again. Did not miss. But not only that, just gives you incredible defense. Plus 18,
Yeah.
a team high with Quickley. Him and Quickley form that dynamic tandem that used to be Derrick Rose and Quickley. Now it's
Hmm.
Josh Hart and Quickley with better defense, extra size, better rebounding, and he shut
Hmm.
down Spider Mitchell. Well, maybe not shut down, but he slowed down
Yeah. Yeah.
Spider, which allowed the Knicks to just, overrun the Cavs and just ended up destroying them really
Yeah,
on their home
yeah,
floor. And I always look at his shot chart, and it's always a couple deep balls and a couple of looks at the rim because that's what he does. He tries to get to the rim. He's a bully like Barrett, but he's more
hmm
efficient. Um, he's
way
exactly
more
what
efficient.
maybe what RJ's future might look like. A more efficient player, a la Josh Hart, but with extra size and a better offensive capability, but maybe not as good of a defender. But if Barrett can grow to be as efficient as Josh Hart is, um, unselfish, his skip passes, EJ, he's always got his head up, and that's
Yeah,
something RJ Barrett can learn from.
yeah, yeah. That's what I mean about intelligent decisions. Like, and I know that I've made a few people mad just talking about just
Yeah.
intelligent basketball, keeping your head up, having multiple things that you're thinking about doing instead of like, and yeah, like I mean, Ruiz said like the unselfishness and hustle. Good, it takes you a long way in this game, and Josh Hart is just one of those players. Josh Hart is one of those players who I expect to be on the court at the end of every single game.
Hmm.
There are no ifs, ands, or buts about it at this point. Like, can you imagine a roster where Josh Hart is? Or can you imagine a rotation where Josh Hart is not on the court at the end of a game, at the end of a playoff game? Like at this point, he's just going to be there because of how many intelligent decisions he makes. And one of the things I love about him is that he is he's more invested on the defensive end and the hustle plays and the 50-50 balls than he is on the offensive end. And that's why all of us,
Hmm.
every single Knicks fan, loves Josh Hart.
Yeah, they do, and that his teammates probably
Yeah.
at the top. EJ, Munch says feels very different not to see Brunson, Quickly, and Hart not on the court together at crunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I think part of that was just this was one of those games where it's a combination of needing to outscore the Cavs, but to also have just the defensive presence and defensive pressure to try to slow down. Like I don't know if you were going to stop Donovan Mitchell tonight, but better believe like there had to be people who could slow down. Like there had to be defensive efforts given to slowing down the Cavs offense, and so I wouldn't. It was a pleasant surprise to see Grimes on the court as much as
Mm.
he was at the end of the game because normally that's reserved for IQ. But I think IQ is one of the candidates to be on the court. I mean, let's not forget IQ's last game before tonight. He was so on fire that Jalen Brunson took a seat right back on the bench. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's that much to read into it. I think that IQ is one of those people who 9 times out of 10 will close out a game.
Yep.
Um,
100. Yeah, and before we talk a little bit more about Quickly and Barrett's game and Grimes, I want to give some love to the big men and
yeah.
Mitchell Robinson's stat line, the block nest monster, a
Okay.
whopping 14 rebounds, 9 of them
Wow.
offensive,
Wow.
5 defensive, 2 steals and 2 blocks, 10 points, hit
Wow.
2 out of 3 of his free throws,
That's an improvement.
4 or 5 from the line. What did you see from Mitchell Robinson going up against Mobley?
Listen, I mean, uh, to have two centers come in and to, obviously at first the game was incredibly difficult. It was fast paced.
Mm,
It felt as if the interior wasn't necessarily being defended. But, there was a maturity to Mitchell Robinson's game that you could see tonight.
yeah,
It was every little bit that he gave on the defensive end is what kept us in the ball game. This is the kind of game that could have gone wrong really quickly
mm,
after the first quarter. After that first quarter, like if Emmanuel Quickley hadn't hit that three, um, went without Mitchell Robinson's defensive effort, his rebounding, his putback to end the
oh
half.
man,
You know, a really, even though he didn't end the game, his contributions should not be diminished. His contributions were
no,
incredibly, incredibly important. So kudos, job well done, Block Nation Monster. Um, really, job well done.
Yep. Yeah, you said it. The rebounding, just giving us so many more possessions.
Hmm.
Nine offensive rebounds. That can suck the life and energy out of the other team when they're trying to get
Yeah,
stops.
yeah.
And you end up you got this big monster in the paint that keeps in just 22 minutes. I mean, if he had played 35 minutes, he probably would have picked up 20, 25 rebounds. Obviously, Jarrett Allen is going to change a lot of that. His
Hmm.
size is not the same of Evan Mobley. Um, so that's going to be interesting to see. But we're going to have Randle. But the hot shooting tonight, I mean, everyone was just hitting nothing but net
Yeah.
early. So that could be what the Knicks' game plan could be, to shoot a lot more. With Mobley and Allen. Uh, Based on what you've seen tonight, EJ, what are your thoughts towards a future playoff series now, given the fact that we might end up seeing Mobley and Randall back?
This is one of those things that, I think this particular matchup tonight, Cleveland is a relatively young team.
Hmm.
Cleveland is a relatively young team. Cleveland is a relatively inexperienced playoff team. Um, One of the things that I would hope that Coach Thibodeau is thinking about, even though it's not time to quite yet start thinking about the playoffs, but you not only out muscle, out jump, or outrun your competition, you have to out emotion, out think, out spirit your competition. And so I hope this
Yep.
kind of game can begin to set a little bit of the seeds of doubt in the minds of a young Cleveland roster. I want this to be an experience where they play tonight and they were so focused on making a statement against the Knicks. Like we know, CT and I know this was a game that they were
Yep.
thinking about. They wanted to win. They wanted to make a statement. But this, I hope that this kind of outcome is something that kind of sticks in the back of their mind and begins to create seeds of doubt. If you watched enough basketball, you see it when teams start to give up. You see it when players start to like quit because they start to think, wait, can I even do this? And my hope is that Cleveland starts to look at this Knicks team and say, "Geez, this team is good. This team is going to be more difficult than we expect."
Mm.
And if
Yep.
that were accomplished tonight, and not we're not going to know the results of that, immediately,
Yep.
but we might see the results of it in the playoffs. So if that is what occurs, where Cleveland begins to experience a level of self doubt, and if the Knicks are able to take one game um, in Cleveland, tonight was an incredibly important moment for that.
Yeah, great points, man. Psychologically, to get that
Hmm.
edge heading in, there's still four more games remain, but especially given the fact that the 4-5 matchup is generally understood to be the most even matchup, you know,
Yeah.
often you could barely decide who, where the fourth team has the advantage. And in this case, I think it's even more prevalent because Josh Hart only joined this team
Hmm.
after or before the trade period. So pretend Josh Hart was on the Knicks to begin the season.
Yeah.
I think the New York Knicks could easily have been the better team.
Yeah.
Um, that 3-4 game separation wouldn't exist. So yeah, the Knicks are very much as good as the Cleveland Cavaliers, if not better. Make no mistake.
Wow.
It's
Wow.
comes down to execution, is what it's going to come down to. Because
That's a
let's look at it
shocking
like
statement.
this.
Yeah.
Let There's another point I want to add to that, and I'll get your thoughts. Is Spider Mitchell, like, he was often that dude that we fear the most, right?
Hmm.
Tonight he gave us his best. He gave us the full clip. He he emptied the clip,
Hmm.
and we still won.
Yeah.
So what else is he left to do in the playoff? Who else is going to go off?
Yeah.
Maybe you could say Garland could go off at the same time. Um, but we basically took their best blow, and yes, Brunson's not going to go off for 48. I
Hmm.
understand that, but I just think we could maybe go to another level. Cleveland. I mean, maybe I'm underestimating Jared Allen's impact. What are your thoughts? Yeah, based on the fact that Spider gave us the full clip tonight, and we still were able to win.
The reason why I said wow when you were speaking is because there is a reality where the Knicks are the four seed,
Mm.
um,
Yep.
and in part, one of the reasons why you could argue they weren't the four seed is because there were games that they were supposed to win that they did not win. There were games that came down to free throws. There were games that
Oh,
came down to silly
plenty.
possessions. Yeah, so there are easily, like, if we were to go, like, game by game by game by game, um, easily there are games that you know could have led to the Knicks being a fourth seed as opposed to a fifth seed. Now, my wow was also the me that's a lifelong Knicks fan that's also thinking about what does this mean for the future, where you can say, and we can possibly say within a few weeks, within a month's time, that the Knicks are a better team than Cleveland with Spider Mitchell.
Mm. Oh,
That's a lot to say. That's if anything, that, like,
yeah.
if that's the takeaway, dude, that makes me feel a lot better than how I was starting the season. When we started the season, man, we were talking playing.
Yep.
And now we're having a conversation 78 games later, 77 games later, 78 games later rather, about no, New York towards the end of the season is better, not necessarily record wise, but in terms of
Mm.
cohesion and chemistry, is better than the fourth seed when we were
Yeah.
talking about play-in October.
Yeah. Yeah. And let's take into account growth and
Yeah.
who has grown a lot. Emmanuel Quickley, Isaiah Hartenstein, youngish players in the league. Whereas you
Yeah.
look at Cleveland's roster, who's really grown throughout the season. Karis
Mhm.
LeVert is already a veteran. Um, Ricky Rubio, his better days are beyond him. Um, is Dean Wade, Isaac Okoro, maybe he's that guy they're hoping to step up. But everyone from the Knicks, from Miles McBride, Emmanuel Quickley, Hartenstein,
Mhm.
Grimes, has grown throughout the regular season to the point now
Yeah.
where this team is way different to what the one that started the year. And Emmanuel Quickley stepping in, sixth man of the year, hopefully, plus 18. He was inefficient, 5 of 16, but he got 5 assists, 4 rebounds, 14 points. And
Yeah.
Quentin Grimes, 4 of 9 from the field, 3 of 8 from deep, 14 points. So um, the Knicks guard depth and perimeter defense now, EJ, is really legitimate. We got
Yeah.
like 4 excellent perimeter defenders now in Hart, Quickly, Grimes, and McBride.
Yeah, and you saw that defensive pressures ratchet up
Yeah.
towards the fourth quarter, and you could see it in terms of the switching. You could see it in terms of the focus on assignments. Um, yeah, and I just want to hit on something you just said too. That was really really an awesome point. The fact
Mm.
that there's been growth and development, and you can't, and even when we do like the preseason stuff, you can't predict how much growth you're going to see in a player over the course of 82 games. You can't predict that.
No.
There aren't any analytics to suggest, okay, year three, this player is going to score 7 more points per game, um, on average for this 30 year. You can't predict that. But in terms of seeing why it's possible that so many people can conceive of a world where the Knicks are beating Cleveland in a playoff matchup, it's because even though it's ostensibly the same roster, it's not the same players that started the season and who they are now. So Q Dot has grown, and like I'm scared. I'm scared of what he's going to be next year. If he can
Mm.
remain healthy and have a healthy off season, I'm scared to see what kind of growth he's going to have because he has something where there's a little bit of everything in that kid.
Oh,
There's a little power. There's a little power in his game. There's a little bit of speed in his game. There's a little bit of creativity. He might become, and again, guys, listen to what I'm saying carefully, but he might become a poor man's Devin Booker. Like that. Like, not saying he's going to become Devin Booker, but there's something about that game where he has the ability, like his speed on that first step to blow by defenders, the ability for him to to maintain his dribble. Um, so your comment really got me to thinking about like why, again, it's a scary proposition to think that this team has a legitimate shot of beating a Cleveland that has the Spider Mitchell, and how much we obsessed over the Spider Mitchell deal. Um, but yeah, I just definitely wanted to respond to that point.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Before we get to this comment, with
Hmm.
the Brunson acquisition, it's not so much Brunson against Spider and which player would have been better. It's how,
Hmm.
to me, it's also you got to take into account how you acquire a player. And my favorite way, the best way I've always wanted the New York Knicks to acquire talent was to sign them as a free agent.
Yeah, because all you're
Don't
giving
give
up
up.
is money.
Yeah, you're welcoming talent for free. You're not giving up anything. So
Yeah.
that has to be added to the equation. Yes, Spider Mitchell you could debate for days who's a better guy, but you've got to give up a lot to get Spider.
Hmm.
We didn't have to give up that much to get Jalen Brunson, and so I think that's big. I like both players; they offer something different. But Munch says the difference is Brunson. People still don't feel comfortable to call him a superstar yet. Maybe still too small of a sample size, but I'd rather have Brunson than Spider in crunch time. He seems more clutch.
Mm. Yo, let me just say this too. There's something about the Darius Garland, and I will admit this. I don't watch enough Cleveland games to make this assertion, but I'm going to just do it.
Hmm.
There just seems to be
Yeah.
something about the Darius Garland Spider Mitchell pairing that they're great, fantastic players, but
Hmm.
there are ways in which they're not necessarily the most ideal pairing of players or in terms of a backcourt. Um, Spider is a lot of dribble, isolation, penetration, improvisation. But Darius Garland needs the ball in his hand too.
Hmm.
Whereas there's something about the Brunson uh, Q dot Quickly tandem where, again, uh, Q dot is going to become one of my favorite players like within the next few years because he doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. IQ can operate with the ball in his hands, without the ball in his hands, to create offense. And I think that's like one of those important factors. So like even if we're talking about a world in which we have Spider Mitchell, um, yeah, there's so many components to that deal. I think sometimes people don't want to talk about. They don't want to talk about who would we have to have given up. Would you have been like if knowing what you know now, if IQ were in the deal, would people have been okay with giving up an IQ for a Spider Mitchell? Knowing what you know now, and rather seeing what you see now, would you be comfortable giving up a Q dot for a Spider Mitchell? Would you be comfortable giving up a Spider Mitchell? I'm sorry, giving up a IQ and a Q dot for a Spider Mitchell. So this is where again, CT, I'm in total agreement with you. My ways for building a roster would definitely be sign, draft, and then if you absolutely have to, then trade and trade around the
Yep.
edges. Trading around
Great
the
point.
edges, that's
Great point.
big difference. Big difference.
Great point. And a lot of fans actually said this when we didn't get Spider. It's like just getting Spider is the all-in move. It should
Yeah.
have been the final move, but we weren't at that
Yeah.
stage yet.
Yeah.
Whereas Cleveland were in that stage. It made more sense.
Yeah.
Um, for us, we needed to acquire Brunson for free, see what he's
Hmm.
like with Randle, and then go
Hmm.
hunting, go fishing for a
Hmm.
Jalen Brown, Joel Embiid, Brandon Ingram, someone to complete
Bro,
the puzzle. You know, um, we have
bro.
some post-game comments from Jetty Osman.
Hmm.
Says definitely going to be a fun matchup. They're a really tough team, especially right now. They're playing good, but I know we're a better team. I know that we're a better team.
Okay, that's him telling. That's not. He's. It's his mantra. He's
Yep,
trying to. He's trying to will that into existence.
yep. And Donovan Mitchell after losing to the Knicks. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, we didn't have Jarrett Allen, we didn't have Isaac Okoro, uh, except he just said that. So,
Yeah, he decided. Yeah.
uh,
Um.
but yeah, Brunson's shot chart on screen: 48 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds, and 7 of 12 from deep.
Can you just repeat that stat line one more time, please?
Man, it is 48 points. 9. I've lost it now. Forgive me. Let me
No,
pull
no
that
problem.
one up. Yeah, it was 9 assists, 48
Wow,
points, 4 rebounds, 7 of 12 from deep, 18 of 32 from the field,
bro,
with 2 offensive rebounds.
bro. We've almost had two different players have 40-10 games.
Hmm. And 250 pieces
Yeah,
in a season. When can we say that? I mean, Bernard King and,
that.
and the likes. Melo didn't
Yeah,
even put up 50 that often.
no.
What what Brunson's doing and what Randle are doing is something we haven't seen since the 80s. Really,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
don't even think about. I mean, not, maybe Patrick Ewing a little bit more in the 90s, but
It's something to behold, and so like the reason why I said wow, ha, Francisco, don't cause any issues,
yeah,
man.
he's uh
Francisco,
he's trying to create some zen.
Francisco, don't do this to me. But I do think that guys, we as Knicks fans, um, we've had a history, a recent history within the last 10, 15 years of being miserable at times with a few bright spots. But the future, guys, is starting to look really, really fascinating. And I'm telling you, I'm going to be
Mm.
eating popcorn for this coming off season because there's a reason why Seti's making that comment about we're a better team than the Knicks because teams know now. Teams know that there's something that's happening here, that this is a competitive team, this is a difficult team. This is a team that like it's getting harder, and I feel like I say this like
Yeah,
I've been saying this for like the last 2 months. This is a team where it's getting harder and harder to laugh at the Knicks and saying same old Knicks. It's not this. It's not the same old Knicks anymore.
and what do you think about the fact is not how many teams out of the fifth seed have $30 million sitting on the bench
Yeah,
DNPing?
yeah, yeah, and
Evan
that's what and
Fournier, Derrick Rose.
Derrick Rose, yeah, and that's where again, like he's an imperfect coach, but the courage to simply say, okay, Evan, you're not it right now. You're not him. Derek, you're not him. And to have the courage to say, okay, I'm not going to stick to what I had done, historically. That's he's to be commended. As much as we chastise him, Coach Thibodeau needs to be commended for shortening up that roster or shortening up the rotation, and it's led to um, what's amounted to a great, great season. This is, like for me, like one of my frustrations with the Jalen Brunson conversation is that a lot of people not only don't understand the magnitude of his performance this season, they also don't understand the magnitude of his performance relative. This is big, relative to the expectations that people had for the Knicks this season. How many people had the Knicks as a possible fifth seed this season?
Mm. Uh, JB Bickerstaff said, understand what's on the line, what's at stake, and what you have to be willing to do to win in these moments. Tip your hat to the Knicks because they did it and
Yeah,
we did not. So some big words from
yeah.
that coach to his team. And we got a tweet from Ed Cohen, MSG. Says the Knicks have now won the season series against the Celtics, Cleveland, and Miami, with
Wow.
splits against Philly, Brooklyn, and ATL.
Yeah. And a couple of those games should not, a couple of those series
Mm.
should not be that way. Um, I will say this, guys. Um,
Yep.
I have an eye on this season, but I have an eye out for next season as well. I'm trying
Yep.
to live in the moment, but this is the moment. This is the moment where a lot of us get your Knicks swag ready, guys. Let's all get our Knicks swag ready, um, because there are gonna be a lot of bandwagon people next season. Make sure you get your swag. Make sure you get your Knicks Buzz swag, because we want to make sure that people are repping the squad ahead of time. Don't be one of those people who are last on the boat.
Yep.
This is going to be an exciting run. It's going to be an exciting run.
Yep. Cannot wait to rock out, man.
Yeah,
The
man.
playoffs, and it's going to be fun. We got
Yeah.
next up, we got the Wizards, our old friend Kristaps Porzingis. We got the Pacers, then the Pelicans, and then finish at MSG with the Pacers again at home, who look like they're tanking,
Yeah.
fam. And we're watching that Dallas pick situation. Why don't you give us some final thoughts on that moving ahead, the, those remaining games, and then the Dallas. Not sure if you've been keeping up to date with how close the Dallas situation is with the pick not converting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll give my thoughts first on the end of the season. I think the end of the
Mm.
season, it's going to be a delicate dance of keeping guys in rhythm, keeping guys healthy. We see what can happen in a split second
Mm.
with key players. I think Alan Hahn tonight made the comment about, like, at this point in the season, you start to see little dings, nicks and wears and tears that normally at the start of a season are nothing. Well, at this point, towards the end of the
Mm.
season, we're at the end of the season. Those little nicks, those little bumps, those little tears, those little bruises, they pile on top of each other. And so, with four
Mm.
games left, especially against teams that for the most part are tanking, they're out of playoff contention, or they aren't interested in playoff contention, it's really about at this point getting reps in, but at the same time keeping your players focused, but also keeping them healthy. So I think that's the first part of it. The
Yep.
Dallas, the Dallas pick. I've honestly been keeping watch via you. Shout out to the Cooler, who's always good for draft information and monitoring and providing information. Um, Dallas is, back to Francisco's point as well too. Dallas is a fascinating, fascinating team, um, because that deal was just their Kyrie deal was just not a smart deal.
Mm.
Um,
Oh man.
because you know, there's a great line. There's a great line from. I know I'm throwing a lot of things right here at one time. There's a great line from the movie White Men Can't Jump. Um, where it's actually really deep. It's really deep. If you haven't seen it, you
Yep.
have to watch it. It is a great basketball movie, maybe one of the
From
greatest basketball movies
Gloria.
ever. From Gloria.
Yep. I know where
Sometimes
you're
when you
going.
win, sometimes when you win, you lose, and sometimes when you lose, you
You
win.
win.
And I forget the third part, but sometimes it's just a tie. And this Dallas season feels like that. Like, if they win, it's a loss. If it's a loss, it's a win. They're this one of these weird teams where that trade should have been a win, but it's actually now a loss, perhaps. So I don't know if the pick is going to convey for us. Um, what do you think, CT? Do you think it's going to convey?
Well, it's a great question you ask because with the Chicago Bulls winning right now, this
Mhm.
pick is the Dallas move into the 10th spot.
Oof.
So, and I don't really see it's
Wow.
it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Right now they are 10 tied, equal tied with Chicago on 37 and 40. Oklahoma in 12, 38 and 40. So they've got one extra win. Toronto 38 and 39. but I think Toronto are playing still, or maybe they already just lost. Yeah, they lost
Wow.
already. So they
Wow.
need to rack up another loss to, to get close to Dallas. So look, it's possible with Kyrie and Luka. They could definitely win a couple of games, but it's really 50-50
Hmm.
right now.
And
I
that's the
mean,
other thing
like,
too.
yeah,
Yeah. With Kyrie, you just don't know. Like Kyrie might have a game where he's just like,
man, you just don't know.
you
Like you
just don't
said,
know. You don't know. So I'm gonna pull up Bill Daughtry right now, and I don't have a great prediction. Uh,
let's see. Um, Great image on screen that the Knicks account tweeted out. Brunson there with a jersey on with MIP, the real people's MIP.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
He again. I'll just say this really quickly. Some of these awards, I like. Some of these awards, I think sometimes people miss. It's not just about a team's record, but it's also like based upon what people expected the team to be. Um, a Nick needs. I'll just say this now. A Nick needs to
Mm.
win an award this year, whether it's Emmanuel Quickley, whether it's Jalen Brunson, because of what the expectations were at the start of the season. The expectations at the start of the season is that the Knicks would be struggling to make a play-in game. And now, again, the national media is discussing how, like, I've yet to hear many national media members actually talk about a world where the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to sweep the Knicks. No, a lot of the discourse right now is the Knicks will probably win this series. So
Ooh,
that
ooh.
has to be rewarded. That has to be rewarded. And what's the singular difference? It's not just a more focused Julius Randle. It's the steadying influence of Jalen Brunson. So that needs to be rewarded.
Hey, great words. With that said, we get ready to close this thing out. The New York Knicks picked up their 45th win tonight. CTEJ. The streets are buzzing in the house. The chat's been on fire all night. Knicks diehards, Knicks Nation, live it up, enjoy it. We're playoff bound right now. 4-5 matchup, getting ready. Prayers up for Julius Randle. Emmanuel Quickley, 6th man of the year. Keep an eye out on that. Jalen Brunson, he wants to get that 50 piece, CJ. I think maybe he was saving that for a playoff game.
I think he missed the free throws on purpose because he wanted to really score 45. 45 for the 45th win against player number 45. That's from CT, by the way.
Yeah, facts. Salute to the chat. Sandman just come in. Road Warrior, Francisco, and a shout out to the super chats from Parish Duggar, and of course our new friend Cross Signal. Salute everyone out here. Like, subscribe. Ready for this run home to the playoffs, and we all got the streets buzzing. Salute, fam. Let's get it. Peace. We'll see you on the next one. Let's go, Knicks.